Welcome into Off the Hook Sports. I am your host, Caleb Calhoun, for the day. Dave is out today. Do not worry. He will be back tomorrow. He had a previous scheduled commitment that he had to deal with today. He couldn't take it off, so he has to deal with that. He will be back tomorrow. So we're rolling today. I'm here with you guys. We got a lot to discuss. Tennessee picks up a legacy commitment. Is it the biggest legacy commitment they've ever landed? And I don't mean in terms of talent. I mean in terms of his deep ties to the university. We're going to talk about that. Also, the Vols are 33rd in returning production this year. They are 9th in the SEC. How significant is that? We're going to play a little hot or cold to compare them to other SEC teams ahead of them and teams that they play on their schedule. This is based on all Power 5 teams. We're not counting Group of 5 teams. They play 3 Group of 5 teams on the year and should win all 3 of those games. Pete Nakos opens up about the drama of reporting on the Nico Iamaleava situation. That all is very interesting. We're going to have a lot to get to with that because the Pete Nakos situation is a little bit interesting, to say the least. So we're going to have to obviously break down that for you guys. And RJ Young, we talked about him last week. He's not a guy we talk about much on the show, but we're going to talk about him 2 weeks in a row because he told a story about Josh Heupel that I think is very revealing in a positive way about Josh Heupel. I'm going to break that down. RJ Young, an interesting story about Josh Heupel. You'll want to stay tuned and hear that. And Lenor Sellers' father says that Lenor Sellers rejected $8 million in NIL offers to go to another school, talking about loyalty to stay at South Carolina. That'll be what the H. And the big question will be, do you believe that? I don't know if I do. So please hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell, turn your notifications on. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. We are live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used. East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. Let's get rolling with today's tough question, and we're going to set it up with JP Peace. Tennessee football secured a commitment from Knoxville linebacker JP Peace on Monday. Peace stands at 6'3", roughly 210 to 215 pounds, is a 3-star on 247 Sports, a 3-star on 247 Sports composite, is not rated on some services yet, but he is in the class of 2027. He's a 3-star on Rivals as well. Most notably, Peace is a legacy player and maybe has the deepest ties to the university of any legacy player ever, because JP Peace is the son of Tennessee linebacker Robert Peace. He is the grandson of Tennessee legendary head coach Phillip Fulmer. On the other side, JP Peace is an interesting pickup to say the least from a legacy tie. But let me point this out. The legacy tie is part of the reason that JP Peace will be a 3-star who plays like a 4 or 5-star. Okay, David Michael says he's a 3-star. We need 5 stars. David, there are multiple reasons JP Peace will be a 3-star who plays like a 5-star. And let me count the ways. 1, he's got overachieving in his family. Okay. Robert Peace was a linebacker for Tennessee from 2000 to 2003. He started at linebacker alongside much more athletic and talented players than Kevin Burnett and Kevin Simon. This is JP Peace's father. Yet Robert Peace was a regular starter and the anchor of that unit because of his talent. Because of his work ethic and his leadership. Phillip Fulmer was also starting offensive lineman and an all SEC guard in the late 60s, early 70s, and a team captain, despite not being good enough to play in the NFL and not having the raw potential, hence the reason he went into coaching. Again, an overachiever. So Peace has the legacy of overachieving. On top of that, Peace has the physical tools that should allow him to be able to play at a level beyond Phillip Fulmer or Robert Peace. Why? Well, he's Robert Peace's son on one side, and he's Phillip Fulmer's grandson on the other. Both Robert Peace and Phillip Fulmer were just athletic enough to play in the SEC, but not athletic enough to be in the NFL. But if you combine the best of their athletic traits on either side, then maybe JP Peace will be athletic enough to play at the next level and will have real NFL talent. But most importantly is the effort and the track record. Being a legacy kid, JP Peace is going to go all out for the University of Tennessee. He's a kid who loves Tennessee. He's going to give his all for Tennessee. It's not just a pit stop for the NFL for him. He's going to Tennessee because he loves it. The Knoxville West High School kid out of Knox County is going to absolutely do everything he can to ball out at Tennessee. That's the first thing that stands out. Secondly, and what's also as important, is that he's a Knox County kid. And guys, I've insisted this for years. I've always told you guys that Nashville kids are overrated on the recruiting trail. That does not mean Nashville's bad with high school football talent. Nashville has the best high school football talent in the state. But because so many people descend upon Nashville to cover the camps there and cover the high schools there, players, wherever they are, they get about a half a star added to their rating because they get scouted so much more by recruiting services. The opposite is true for every other part of Tennessee. Murfreesboro, Knoxville, Chattanooga, and Memphis all get scouted a lot less. Particularly Chattanooga and Knoxville. Memphis still gets scouted. But Chattanooga and Knoxville hardly get scouted. That's why everybody who comes from those areas always tends to work out. Chattanooga kids turn out to be superstars. Knoxville kids always play above their level, particularly when they're committed to the University of Tennessee. You can track this, okay? Knox kids, more than anybody else, live up to their potential and oftentimes surpass it. Tennessee just had Cooper Mays on this program for 4 years. Cooper Mays was supposed to be too small to play center in the SEC. He was a 2-time All-SEC center, maybe 3-time, I can't remember, but was an anchor of an offensive line that helped Josh Heupel's offense really take off. That's because he's a Knoxville kid and a Knox County kid. Knox County kids live up to their hype more often than not just because they're local kids who want to play for Tennessee, but because Knoxville's not properly scouted by recruiting services the way Nashville and Atlanta are. Well, the way Atlanta is properly scouted and the way Nashville is over-scouted. Knoxville's not scouted the way it should be. So you see a lot of misses on kids that are really, really good that maybe get a 3-star. If a Knox County kid is a 3-star, chances are they're a 4-star caliber player, typically. Okay, so that's JP Peace. And by the way, JP Peace is a year out from 2 years out from having to actually commit. He's still got 2 more years of high school football to play. So let's not even consider the fact that JP Peace could develop into a 4-star fairly quickly. I mean, this is very early in the recruiting process. I genuinely think when you take everything into account, he is your, and I wrote a column on this, he is your classic overachiever for Tennessee football. He's going, and not everybody likes the term overachiever, and I get it, but he will be your classic overachiever in terms of he will live up to every bit of a star rating, and you should add half a star to a star. If he were playing Madden back in the old days with the game ratings, if he was rated as a 75, he would have enough production to become an 85 midway through the season in Madden. That's my belief in JP Peace. I think more than anything, that's the biggest deal for JP Peace. And I do think in general, JP Peace is going to be an incredible player for Tennessee. He's a very, very big pickup. It's impossible to overstate just what type of value he brings to the program. With all that said, is JP Peace Tennessee's biggest legacy pickup ever, given his ties? That is today's tough question, and it's brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Banks & Jones, why settle, play to win. Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com.
So again, today's tough question, is he Tennessee's biggest legacy pickup ever? I don't mean in talent. Biggest legacy pickup ever in terms of talent from Tennessee is Eric Berry, and will always be Eric Berry. Eric Berry was the son of James Berry and is one of the greatest players to ever play at Tennessee. I'm talking about in terms of biggest legacy pickup, specifically in terms of raw, shall we say, deep ties to the university. And I would say yes. I would say he's Tennessee's biggest pickup in terms of ties to the university. And so specifically those things right there, I think that I really do think that JP Peace is far and away Tennessee's biggest pickup on that front. So with that in mind, JP Peace is going to be a member of the 2027 recruiting class. So there's plenty of time to see how he ends up turning out. But in general, I think JP Peace is an amazing pickup for Tennessee. He is their biggest legacy pickup in terms of carrying on a gigantic legacy for the university, from the grandson of a legendary coach who played at Tennessee, the son of Robert Peace, a very good player for Tennessee in the early 2000s. For those who don't remember Robert Peace, go back and watch the 2003 Tennessee-Alabama game. Robert Peace was a huge part of Tennessee winning that game and deserves a ton of respect. So, JP Peace, great pickup for Tennessee, great pickup for Josh Heupel. William Ainge was the one who recruited him. Great pickup for William Ainge. Portions of the program are brought to you by Chattanooga Mortgage. Congratulations, your home search just got easier. Buying home in Chattanooga has never been easier. Chat with 2tsmortgage.com. Chat with 2tsmortgage.com. It is time to play a little hot or cold, and it's brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Tennessee football is ranked number 33 among Power 5 schools in number of returning starters. The Vols have a total of 10 returning starters. And when I say returning starters, CBS, Cody Nagel of CBS tracked this down, and this is returning production to a certain degree. Even if you weren't technically listed as a starter on the depth chart, there's starter quality on you. Tennessee's ranked number 33 with just 10 returning starters. 3 on offense, 7 on defense. The ones listed on here were Chris Brazzell. A little bit iffy, but I'm willing to give Chris Brazzell the returning starter role, even though I think Squirrel White, Dante Thornton, and Drew McCoy were the main starters at receiver last year. But Chris Brazzell, Miles Kitzelman, and Lance Hurd are the only ones on offense. On defense, Dominic Bailey, Bryson Eason, Arian Carter, Jeremiah Thielander, Ricky Gibson III, Jamon McCoy, and Andre Turrentine are all on there. Is it a big deal? We're going to start with this, and we're going to play hot or cold, comparing them to other schools on here. But is it a big deal that Tennessee is ranked number 33 in returning starters? By the way, 9th in the SEC. Returning starters mean one of two things. Either you're going to upgrade because you have new guys coming in, or you're going to lose your chemistry advantage. Now, Tennessee and Josh Heupel's program have built things around chemistry and keeping guys together. They're kind of going the Michigan model somewhat with that. So losing a lot of starters can be painful, but a lot of the guys are having stepped into the roles, with the exception of Joey Aguilar for Nico Iamaleava, which you know is its story on its own. A lot of the guys having to step into the roles are guys that were on the bench last year and are now ready to step forward and take a new role. So they're familiar with the program and they have experience. So I'm going to say not a huge deal. Now, it is true that Tennessee, among the 9 Power 5 schools on their schedule, 5 of them are ahead in terms of returning starters. We're going to play hot or cold in a minute to determine if it's a big deal which schools are ahead of them, because I'm going to be honest with you guys. I think there is some cause for concern if you're Tennessee. And when I say Power 5, I really mean Power 4 now, the SEC, ACC, Big 12, Big 10. Depending on who you're playing, there could be some concern over whether or not this difference in returning starters is a big deal. And it could be a benefit depending on teams you're ahead of. So we're going to break down everybody on Tennessee's schedule that is in the Power 5, not the Group of 5. For those who don't know, with the Power 4 now, the number of Power 4 schools out there are 67. There are 67 Power 4 schools now. Excuse me, 68 when you count Notre Dame. There are 68 Power 4 schools. So number 33, Tennessee's just ever so slightly in the top half. So let's play hot or cold. Hot or cold brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. cityheatandair.com. I'm going to go down a list of teams that are relevant to Tennessee, that are ahead of Tennessee or behind Tennessee. And we're going to ask if we're hot that where Tennessee is a big deal, or not hot. All right. So hot or cold? Ahead of Tennessee. Schools ahead of Tennessee. We start with and we're going to go very high up, Alabama. Alabama being ahead of Tennessee. I'm very hot on that as a concern for Tennessee, as a big concern for Tennessee. Alabama's 5th in returning starters this year. They have 14. Look, Alabama has so many starters back. They are entering their second year under Kalen DeBoer, so they're more familiar with the system. And Kalen DeBoer finally is going to have a quarterback that can run a system. And that's not one of his returning starters. It's a huge deal, Alabama's number of returning starters. Tennessee should absolutely be concerned about that. Alabama, I'm hot on that being a concern for Tennessee, that Alabama's ahead of Tennessee. Behind Alabama, Florida is number 10. Once again, I'm hot on that. Florida finished last year very, very, very strong. They look like a very dangerous team to start this year. Tennessee has to travel to Florida in November. I'm hot on that being a concern for Tennessee, that Florida returns more starters than Tennessee. They return 13 overall. DJ Lagway obviously stands out for them. And I think Tennessee should worry about that, quite honestly. Vanderbilt is number 13 in number of returning starters. Should Tennessee worry about that? No, I'm cold on that. I'm cold on worrying about Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt comes to Knoxville. Vanderbilt's not beating Tennessee, even with Diego Pavia. Not happening. They're not good enough. I'm cold on that. Oklahoma being ahead of Tennessee in returning starters. They are down at number 16. I should be hot on that, but I'm cold on that. I think Oklahoma is going to fall apart. I don't have faith in Brent Venables, particularly down the run in November. And since they're going to Knoxville, I don't think that's going to be I genuinely don't think Oklahoma is going to be a tough game. Tennessee. So I'm actually very cold on Oklahoma being a worry for Tennessee. And lastly, and this is going to be a hot take for you guys, but Mississippi State is down at number 23. I'm hot on Mississippi State potentially being a fear for Tennessee with so many returning starters. Look, they had a rough year last year, but I firmly believe in the program Jeff Levy's building. A full year with players in the system now, and with that many returning starters, they do have 11 back. Tennessee has to travel to Mississippi State. I think there is reason to be concerned if you're Tennessee about Mississippi State having more returning starters than you and enough returning production outside of a quarterback, which they're upgrading there anyway, to think that you could. If you're not careful, they could surprise you. And you guys can think I'm crazy on that, but what did Arkansas do to Tennessee last year? So those are the ones ahead of Tennessee. We're going to talk about the ones behind Tennessee now on Tennessee's schedule. First, Hot or Cold brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
There's your pair.
Back to hot or cold teams on Tennessee's schedule who have more or less returning starters in them. Now we go to the teams that Tennessee is ahead of. Again, Tennessee's number 33 in the nation, and they are ahead of 4 teams on their schedule. One is Arkansas. Am I hot or cold on that? I'm cold on that because it's not going to matter how many returning starters Arkansas had. When they go to Knoxville, Tennessee is going to beat the brakes off them. The number of returning starters Arkansas has is completely irrelevant. Tennessee's on a step way above them. Also below Tennessee, way down near the outside of the top 50 almost. Georgia. All right, are you guys ready? Theoretically, I should be cold on that. I should say to you that Georgia has so much talent, they don't rebuild, they just reload, and so it doesn't matter that they're losing so much talent. But since one of the starters that they lost is their quarterback in Carson Beck, and since Gunnar Stockton didn't do what we thought he should do for them in the playoff, I am hot on Georgia being behind Tennessee in number of returning starters, and significantly so. They only have 7 back. Tennessee has 10. They go to Knoxville in September. That gives Tennessee a really, really good chance to catch Georgia napping as they're still trying to develop and putting things together. So I'm actually hot on Georgia returning only 7 starters. And I'm going to make that a poll question. Here's the poll question right now. Is it a big deal that Georgia returns so few starters compared to Tennessee? And the responses can be yes, since they play each other early. Okay, the responses will be yes, they play each other early. Or how about this? Is it a big deal that Tennessee returns so many more starters than Georgia? And we'll say, yes, it gives Vols a chance. Vols a great chance. Or no, Georgia just reloads on talent. You guys go ahead and vote on that. I actually think, yes, it gives Tennessee a great chance. Look, college football, even no matter how good of a job Kirby Smart is doing in the NIL age, you can't just reload the way you used to be able to. All right, it's just not possible. You have to be able to maintain a level of chemistry and experience. It's not the Nick Saban Alabama years. So I'm actually very hot on Georgia being so far below Tennessee. Kentucky also tied with Georgia, only 7 returning starters. I'm actually pretty hot on that in terms of how it benefits Tennessee, because I do think it's a big deal that Kentucky has so few returning starters, because there's a lot of setup for Tennessee to potentially lose to Kentucky this year. I told you guys that last week, playing at Kentucky, late October, night game. Josh Heupel struggles at night. There was a little bit of a tinge there that something can happen, but with Kentucky only returning 7 starters, I think Tennessee gets a big advantage. So yes, Kentucky also, I'm hot on them having it's a big deal that Kentucky returns so many fewer starters than Tennessee. And the same number of returning starters, Syracuse with just 7. I'm also hot on that because the two face off at the beginning of the year. I think Syracuse and Fran Brown have a great program building. I think he's getting his guys in place and he's going to have the thing rolling towards the end of the year. But I think they're going to have another rough start to the year because of so many starters they have to replace. And the start to the year includes them playing Tennessee, and Tennessee playing them at noon is also a big help. So I'm hot on that as well. A couple other teams that would be relevant to Tennessee. Tennessee is behind Auburn. They're behind Missouri. Is that relevant? I'm hot on those if you're actually talking about SEC standings. They could be concerned about Auburn and Missouri taking big steps forward this year, particularly Hugh Freeze's 3rd year. Missouri's got a solid program in Eli Drinkwitz. And they're also behind Texas A&M. I'm also hot on that because I think Texas A&M could take a huge leap forward given everything that's been happening with them. They are 9th in the SEC overall. They are ahead of LSU. I'm hot on the fact that they're ahead of LSU because LSU is still trying to find their way under Brian Kelly. The head of Ole Miss, cold on that. Ole Miss is still the same program. They just reload with transfer portal guys, and so nothing's changing there. So overall, and ahead of South Carolina, I'm actually pretty hot on that. I think it helps that they're ahead of South Carolina, even with South Carolina returning Lanoris Sellers. I don't think South Carolina can be a threat because of that. So again, it's a case-by-case basis if returning starters actually helps you or hurts you. So it depends on where you land. And it depends on the type of talent you have and where you have returning starters. And I think Tennessee, in both cases, people they're ahead of and teams they're behind, the number affects it for some and doesn't for others. Portions of the program are brought to you by Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards. HempHouseChatWith2Ts.com. HempHouseChatWith2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOKED for 10% off. That's HOOKED for 10% off. When we come back, Pete Nakos is opening up about what happened with the Nico Iamaleava saga and how he reported on it. That'll be 4 downs. And we got This Day in Tennessee history coming up. Stick with us. 2 minutes. Off the Hook Sports, live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio. The show brought to you by Banks and Jones.
Why Banks and Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue.
We still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at nfc1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
Welcome back to Off the Hook Sports. Portions of the program brought to you by Hound Dogs of Knoxville. Champions look good in orange. hdknoxville.com. hdknoxville.com. It is time for this day in Tennessee history. And it is a happy birthday to Albert Haynesworth. Albert Haynesworth turns 44 years old today. One of the biggest and most talented Tennessee defensive tackles to ever play in the NFL. We know about his temperament, and there were some issues there, but boy, when he got on the field, man, he was incredibly elite. That dude was insane, and it's still insane to me that Albert Haynesworth and John Henderson played together as the interior defensive tackles in the 2001 season, and that the reason Tennessee didn't go to the national title that year was because they couldn't stop a quarterback draw with those two defensive tackles. It made no sense, but Albert Haynesworth was an incredible player. All-Pro 2 times, 2007, 2008, 2-time Pro Bowl, 2007, 2008. Got that huge contract from Washington in 2009. Obviously, his stardom years were with the Titans. He helped the Titans get the best record in the NFL in 2008 when he was just absolutely dominant in the middle. Albert Haynesworth was just insane. And you saw that because when they lost Albert Haynesworth and John Henderson, the next year, the defensive line took a big drop-off in 2002, and then they took another drop-off in 2003 when they were to replace so many guys. It was such a crazy thing to think about. Tennessee hardly had to blitz in 2001. They turned Dominic Stevenson into an all-SEC linebacker when they didn't have the greatest linebackers because of the push that John Henderson and Albert Haynesworth were getting up the middle, turned Will Overstreet into an NFL draft pick. There were a lot of weaknesses on that Tennessee defense, by the way. The secondary was still young and struggling. They had a lot of issues in the secondary. And the whole reason that defense was elite was because of what John Henderson and Albert Haynesworth were able to do together up front. Haynesworth was unstoppable during that time. Just raw talent. I think at his peak in the NFL, he was 6'6", 350 pounds. A Hartsville, South Carolina kid. Again, Tennessee built its defensive line off South Carolina kids during that time. The entire starting defensive line from the 98 national title team was from South Carolina. And then Haynesworth came a little bit later. Haynesworth is actually, from my understanding, a very, very nice guy and a very good guy. They had to try to find a way to channel his anger and to get him angry so he could be dominant as a defensive lineman on the field. The problem is when you do that, for some people, it's hard to turn it off. And sometimes for Albert Haynesworth, it was hard to turn it off. Who I don't know if you guys know, there's the famous Will Offenhuzel fight where he left and came back with a giant pole. So it's pretty Albert Haynesworth, one of the funnier players to cover in Tennessee history. He was the 15th pick by the Titans in the first round of the 2002 NFL draft and was a superstar, I think, in the NFL. I loved him when he played for the Titans. I absolutely loved him and his style of play. So again, a very happy birthday to Albert Haynesworth. This day in Tennessee history brought to you by Sports Treasures.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
All right, welcome back to Off the Hook Sports. It's time to give some credence to someone who deserves a lot more respect now given everything that happened. Pete Nakos of On 3 has finally opened up about the Nico Iamaleava situation that led to Iamaleava transferring on Friday in April. And for those who don't remember, Pete Nakos was the one who reported the news of Nico Iamaleava asking for more money. That came on a Thursday. Nico Iamaleava skipped practice on Friday and then was in the portal on Saturday. That's how that played out. Pete Nakos recently, Pete Nakos was one who actually initially broke the story. I believe it was on April the 10th. I think that was on a Wednesday. But Nakos, on a recent podcast, it was the Graham Link and Mac Lane show, talked about his experience of breaking the Iamaleava news. And here's what he said. He said, quote, "I'm the kind of guy who wakes up and really wants to get to the office. I'm not going to sleep in. But that day I had a doctor's appointment, so I was like, all right, my day is already off. What's going to happen when I walk in at 10 a.m.? I can't imagine it's going to be that eventful of a day. And I got a phone call from a source, and it's like, hey, we're pretty confident Nico's going to enter the transfer portal. And I'm like, what? You're screwing with me. I don't believe you. But they're like, no, stuff went down yesterday, and we think he can go in the portal. And this was a source that had nothing to do with Tennessee or Nico's camp, but someone in the college football space who would know what they're talking about. And, the funny thing in hindsight is that ESPN did a deep dive into all this. I don't know, like 2 weeks after it happened. And they did come out and say Nico made some comments on Wednesday. So that was funny to read. But I got the call on Thursday, and then your radar goes up. You start trying to make the phone calls like, okay, what's going on? And you quickly discover that Tennessee is in this situation where it's clear that Nico's camp would like some more money before the 2025 season kicks off. And the portal opens in 5 or 6 days. The spring game's in 2 days. It's all going to come to a tipping point. So I talked to Tennessee. I talked to his dad that day too, had a phone call with him where he basically told me to lose his number. And we get to the point where it's like, okay, so we all know that this is going on. We're not just going to sit here and wait for it to happen. So we decided to, after talking to plenty of sources and trying to vet this thing, we decided to put out that we're comfortable reporting that there are active negotiations, that Nico is making $2.4 million. He loves Josh Heupel. He loves Tennessee, but they want more money. And not everyone loved that. And that's fine. And I know you're going to ask me about this, but as a reporter and doing what I do, I'm not trying to dance on a grave at the end of the day, right? Obviously, when I report something, I stand by it. I have the sources that say it, and I trust my sources. I vetted my sources, and I stand by it. So when I report the story, it's not to get one over on someone, but I still can't believe everything went down the way it did after we hit publish on that story. Driving home that day, I definitely knew I was dragged all across social media, and it wasn't a fun day. And Nico's dad sent me some text messages too. It wasn't ideal, and it wasn't a good spot to be in. And people were coming out trying to report things too, of like, hey, this is wrong. This is not what we're hearing. And then Friday happened, Nico missing practice, and the rest was history. Now, there is a lot interesting about this because in case we forget, there's two narratives and there's two camps out here. One camp is that Nico was actively negotiating more money. Tennessee stood their ground and Nico hit the transfer portal. Another camp is that Nico was trying to force Josh Heupel to implement more of a pro-style offense and wanted more things that would develop him for the NFL, and that's why he transferred. And then there's another camp of sources we have close to Tennessee that Nico was negotiating whatever with Josh Heupel, but then the Pete Nakos report came out and he didn't like that, and his camp didn't like that, and that's why he entered the transfer portal. So let me throw out one of the other sides of this story, because one, when that story happened, Nico Iamaleava's father came out and said, quote, "More games being played off the field than on the field. B-word Nakos from On 3 Sports called and asked me directly. I told him I had no idea on what he's talking about. He said his close source said that he trusts with his life from the University of Tennessee staff gave him the information. So y'all can ask them what's going on because it ain't from us." So we're going to play 4 downs here because there are 3 ways this could have gone. And one of the ways is why Nico entered the portal. But this is based on Pete Nakos' reporting. So There are three ways Nico Iamaleava, three reasons he could have entered the portal. And why was he entering the portal? And I'm going to give you what Joel Klatt had said back in April, just to remind you guys, because there were conflicting reports. Klatt said the news that he was demanding more money, Tennessee said no, pound sand, and now he's leaving. He said, I'm here to tell you there's a lot more to that story. That is a narrative being pushed, and I think that makes sense. He's a 20 to 21-year-old kid, and now he's alone and teamless with no PR behind him whatsoever, while Tennessee has their entire apparatus and fan base against the kid. Of course, this is the narrative that's going to be pushed. He said, did he demand more money this is Joel Klatt saying, did he demand more money, him or his people? Probably. Did he also leave? I've been told, asked that the offense grow a little bit because of what I was just discussing about the draft process for quarterbacks going to the NFL. Yes, he did. And I think he was unhappy. And I think his people and his team were unhappy with the way that spring ball was going, in particular, seeing that the offense was not changing and was not growing. This is the old Art Briles Baylor offense that Tennessee uses. No quarterback has really succeeded going from that offense into the NFL. So there was some discussion about his growth of the offense that I don't feel like they thought took place. So there's more to this story than just money. There always is. And unfortunately for him, he's being pitted as the villain in this story. Now, did he ask for more money? Probably, likely. Who's the real villain in this story, though? Is it Tennessee? No. Is it Josh Heupel? No. Is it the boosters? No. Is it Nico Iamaleava? No. It is the NCAA. They abdicated their responsibility to govern the sport. Now, there could certainly be some truth with that, because the talk of Iamaleava entering the portal didn't come until the end of spring, which could suggest that maybe they were negotiating more money and trying to get the offense to develop a little bit, and they were frustrated with the way the offense played out. But we're going to play a little Four Downs, and Four Downs brought to you by Ted Russell Ford, and we're going to give you the three possible reasons he could have left, and then we'll go to fourth down. What is the most likely reason? So, again, Four Downs brought to you by Ted Russell Ford. Cooper Mays would like to tell you guys all to like and subscribe. And we say from Cooper Mays, Coop, first down. Reasons Nico Iamaleava may have left UT. First down. He wanted more money, and Tennessee said no. Now, that's the most possible scenario. That's where I believe Pete Nakos got his reporting about the more money. Joel Klatt's also right, though, that the University of Tennessee has their entire PR campaign behind him. It's a lot easier to tell somebody to make a kid look like he was just wanting more money as opposed to wanting the offense to change a little bit. Tennessee, if Pete Nakos' sources are leaking things to him and they are affiliated with Tennessee, then you could see how Tennessee, knowing that Iamaleava may have been planning to transfer because he was upset with the offense, would go ahead and get in front of this with this PR. But the more money situation is plausible when we're hearing that he already got $8 million and that they were negotiating more. He was getting $2.4 million. We're hearing a lot of that. So that's plausible. Second down from Cooper Mays. Nico Iamaleava wanted the offense to change. Now, there's a flaw with this argument, which is that Nico Iamaleava knew what he committed to when he went to Tennessee, which is, we've talked about this. You don't commit to Tennessee to develop as a quarterback. You commit to Tennessee to put up video game numbers. That's what you do. So it's weird that he would commit and not expect to do that. But that's where we're landing with Nico Iamaleava, that there's this talk that he wanted the offense to develop a little better for him. But then he goes and enters the portal, and he lands at UCLA with the offensive coordinator who may be trying to run more pro concepts, but at the same time, and Tino Sinceri has never been a full-time sole offensive coordinator, so that just doesn't make sense. Tennessee center Cooper Mays, third down. Nico Iamaleava left because the Pete Nakos report came out. Now, this is one that his camp's not saying, nor is Tennessee saying, but there could be a belief that there was negotiations going on. The Pete Nakos report came out, and Nico Iamaleava and his camp didn't like the Pete Nakos report came out because they felt that somebody with Tennessee leaked it. We do know from the Chris Lowe reporting, somebody with Tennessee, there was a player who Nico told he was transferring, went and talked to Josh Heupel. Josh Heupel talked to Nico. So that's third down. It's a possibility. Is it likely? I don't know. We come with fourth down next. Four Downs brought to you by Ted Russell Ford.
a beacon of hope in a world of high prices. Look to the skies, Knoxville. Super Savings is here. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 Volume 4 dealer. Employee pricing is here. You pay what we pay on all new Ford models. Come see the super dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
4 Downs brought to you by Ted Russell Ford. All SEC center Cooper Mays bringing your 4th down. Why did Nico Iamaleava leave Tennessee? Could it be a combination of the things? Could it be a combination of the money, the offense, and the Pete Nakos report? Based on what Pete Nakos is talking about now, and Pete Nakos, I totally support Pete Nakos and all the reporting he did. I also believe in the Joel Klatt reporting. I believe it's a combination of things. I believe Nico knew that this offense wasn't developing him for the NFL, but I believe he would have looked past that for the $4 million as opposed to 2.4. I don't care what anybody says, he would have. So I believe Nico knew the offense was developing him for the NFL. I also believe that Nico firmly wanted more money and was negotiated. Here's how I think this went down. Nico and his camp were in ongoing negotiations for more money. Spring practice plays out. Nico's frustrating. Nico's camp's frustrated. He's not getting more money. They're also frustrated that the offense is not changing at all to develop him for the NFL. And the frustration about more money, confirmation bias, they tell themselves that they don't like the offense and that they don't like the offense too. The week of the spring game, Nico tells a teammate or two that he's going to transfer from Tennessee. A teammate goes to Josh Heupel. Josh Heupel confronts Nico, believes he's being lied to. And then the University of Tennessee has sources leak the story to Pete Nakos to get ahead of it. And then I do believe because that story was leaked, while there still may have been ongoing negotiations, the Iamaleava family was upset about that. They were already looking at transferring, and they say, we're done. We're going to go ahead and leave and walk out. That's how I think it played out. I think it was a combination of factors. I know not everybody's going to agree with me on that, and that's fine. I think some people are just going to say more money, but I think we have to be fair here and say that oftentimes it is a combination of factors. And the poll question of why did Nico Iamaleava leave Tennessee? More money, the offense, Pete Nakos leaking his report, a combination of things. 10 votes so far. 50% say more money. 40% say a combination of things, and 10% say Pete Nakos leaving his report. Portions of the program are brought to you by Peak IV Hydration in South Knoxville and Sevierville. Live your life to the fullest. Hydrate, rejuvenate, and elevate your health with Peak IV Hydration. PeakIVHydration.com. Link is in the chat. When we come back, RJ Young said something interesting about Josh Heupel that I think we have to report on. Stick with us. 2 minutes off the hook. Sports.
It's a new year, a new day, and Ted Russell Lincoln has an exciting new offer to share. Right now, get a 2024 Lincoln Navigator with 0% APR for 72 months and up to $4,000 in bonus cash. Or drive away in a new 2024 Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring with 0% APR for 60 months and up to $4,500 in bonus cash. It's time to get excited about the ride. Come and see what a luxury car experience truly is at Ted Russell Lincoln Knoxville.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
Welcome back to Off the Hook Sports. Portions of the program are brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. They want to be your jeweler. Looking for affordable game day jewelry. Tennessee Tradition, rickterryjewelry.com. And also the UPS store, Hardin Valley, helping individuals and small businesses, wide range of products and services, locally owned and operated, 10629 Hardin Valley Road. All right. We got more news to talk about of things being leaked and stories regarding Tennessee and their staff that, in this case, make Tennessee look pretty good. Let's be fair. National analyst R.J. Young, who covers the Oklahoma Sooners and has a YouTube channel on it. By the way, last week we talked about him on our show because he talked about how Tennessee is going to be a revenge game for Oklahoma. And he made some comments about Tennessee, and we addressed them. But R.J. Young this week, and his podcast is called Adapt and Respond with R.J. Young. He praised Josh Heupel last week on the show, and he told a story. And he said when he was new at Oklahoma, covering them for rivals, he said this was back when Oklahoma had Trevor Knight. And he said they were going to an offense that was featuring 11 and 12 personnel, and they were doing some things like zone reads that he just didn't think was cool or would work. Now, this is an interesting leak. This is an interesting leak into a detail, but it's something that's worth mentioning. The leak is that he's telling the story of Josh Heupel having an offense forced on him that Josh Heupel didn't want. The whole reason for the 11 and 12 personnel back then was that Bob Stoops wanted Josh Heupel to add in the zone reads for Trevor Knight to try to turn Trevor Knight into Johnny Manziel and abandon his air raid. And Josh Heupel didn't want that, and then Josh Heupel got scapegoated when it didn't work out. So when R.J. Young said he asked him football questions, he said he asked Josh Heupel one time, quote, "Hey, he's not really reading that mesh. He's not really reading that in. What are you coaching him on?" And he said Josh Heupel would take the time to say, "Hey, look, sometimes it's feel, sometimes it's getting guys reps. He's running something we didn't ask him to run before we got here. We're going slow." He says, quote, "Josh didn't have to take the time to explain to me why his offense was suffering or not suffering. And it certainly came on later that year, but he did. And anytime that a person is nice to you when they don't have to be, it shows you their character and who they are. There are a lot of things that are going to be said about Josh Heupel. There are a lot of things that could probably change about Josh Heupel. But that aura that he has is one of honesty, authenticity, and sincerity. We need more of that in college football." R.J. Young, to his credit, without meaning to, just revealed why Josh Heupel says nothing at Tennessee and is extremely cagey. And bank on it, brought to you by a commercial bank, member FDIC, Josh Heupel will never open up again.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
RJ Young is describing Josh Heupel as the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma in 2014. And he is praising Josh Heupel for taking the time to explain football talk offensively to a reporter at Rivals. What happened to Josh Heupel later that year? Josh Heupel was canned. He was scapegoated by Bob Stoops in two ways. Bob Stoops scapegoated him to protect Mike Stoops, his defensive coordinator, who was doing a horrible job at Oklahoma. Also scapegoated him for the offense not doing what they expected and refusing to acknowledge the reason the offense wasn't doing what they expected was because Bob Stoops tried to force the offense that was run for Johnny Manziel onto Josh Heupel and tried to force Josh Heupel, who didn't understand that offense, to force it onto Trevor Knight, who was not a quarterback equipped to run that offense. And so Josh Heupel was, it sounds like, being very open about things at that time and talking to reporters. And maybe that's why he was fired. Maybe Josh Heupel was trying to explain this offense to reporters and Bob Stoops didn't want it getting out that Josh Heupel was potentially going to make Bob Stoops look bad for forcing this offense on him. Josh Heupel, for whatever reason, though, that's not the Josh Heupel we know at Tennessee, those of us who cover him. At Tennessee, Josh Heupel says a lot without saying anything. He's not going to break down his offense. He's not going to do that for you. He is going to run his offense. He's going to be very cagey about it. It's what Dave always says. Heupel's paranoid, and he's been paranoid for a reason. And I think a big reason is because it looks like Josh Heupel's honesty was last seen in 2014. So here's what's happening. Josh Heupel was an honest offensive coordinator in 2014 who spoke with the media and explained the offense to the media. Then he got fired unfairly by the head coach. And ever since then, he hasn't been someone who opens up about the offense. I firmly believe that's the case. And after getting fired and getting his career restarted at Missouri, he stayed first Utah State, then Missouri. He stayed cagey about the offense. And while staying cagey, he has risen from offensive coordinator at Missouri to head coach at UCF to head coach at Tennessee. Things have worked out for him pretty well. And think about what Josh Heupel said. He said, again, this is about why Trevor Knight's not reading the zone offense that was forced on him that Josh Heupel didn't want in 2014. And for those who are curious, we have a whole breakdown of this from an Oklahoma reporter about why Josh Heupel did not stay at Oklahoma, why he was really fired. And John Hoover breaks down exactly why he was fired. He was covering Josh Heupel in Oklahoma at the time, and he breaks down exactly how Josh Heupel was railroaded by Bob Stoops. We did that back in September of last year, the week Tennessee was set to play Oklahoma. I'm actually sharing the link to the video right now if you guys want to take a look at it. It fully breaks down how Josh Heupel was scapegoated and set up by Oklahoma, okay, and Bob Stoops. And it sounds like Josh Heupel knew he was being set up and was talking to reporters because, again, he was straight up saying, Trevor Knight's running something we didn't ask him to run before he got here. We're going slow. That's Josh Heupel acknowledging that we're forcing a new offense on him. Now, what's not being told is Josh Heupel was forced to force that new offense on him. Now, let's not forget this for a minute. This is what's so crazy about it, okay? Oklahoma in 2012 got Johnny footballed. They got wrecked by Johnny Manziel and Texas A&M 41-13. That was 2012. They stick with the Heupel offense in 2013. The offense Heupel wants to run. And they finish 11-2, and they beat Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. They enter 2014 number 4. Why would Bob Stoops want to switch to the Manziel offense after 2013 and not after 2012 when his team got wrecked? That was a desperate thing because he got so wide-eyed by what Johnny Manziel was able to do even in the next year in 2013. Okay, he saw it succeed 2 years in a row, and he wanted to run it. And that's why Oklahoma went from 11-2 to 8-5 because things fell apart. By the way, for the record, in their 4 regular season losses, they lost 33, 30, and 35. In their 4 regular season losses, in 3 of them, they scored 33 points, 30 points, and 35 points. And then they lost 40-6 to Clemson in the Russell Athletic Bowl, but I don't think they cared about that game. I bring all that up to say Josh Heupel, who was co-offensive coordinators with Jay Norvell at the time, was completely scapegoated for how that happened. And this revelation by RJ Young shows that Josh Heupel was being punished for being honest and open with the media in a way that is proper, in a way that should happen. And that's why he's not as honest and open with Tennessee now, because of what happened to him when he was offensive coordinator of Oklahoma. I firmly believe that. And it really speaks to Bob Stoops' character, if we're being honest, that Bob Stoops was willing to scapegoat Josh Heupel like that for an offense that Bob Stoops forced on him, that Josh Heupel didn't want to run, and Stoops should have known was not a good fit for Trevor Knight. And also Stoops, as a defensive guy, should never have been that type of coach to make those type of decisions. He should have let Josh Heupel run the show. Completely unfair that he didn't. He was railroaded. And RJ Young is praising Josh Heupel for something. The irony, the root of this is RJ Young is praising Josh Heupel for something that Josh Heupel doesn't do anymore. And it's probably connected, because the time Josh Heupel did that with RJ Young was the year he got fired as an offensive coordinator for something that wasn't his fault. Portions of the program are brought to you by National Fitness Center. Unmatched values, limitless options. Begin your fitness journey today. It is time for this day it is time for the stat of the day. And this is an interesting one, guys. Stat of the day is this. With JP Peace's commitment to Tennessee, he will arrive at Tennessee in 2027. JP Peace's commitment opens the door for Phillip Fulmer's legacy to be affiliated with Tennessee across 8 different decades. Let me explain. Phillip Fulmer played for Tennessee in the 60s and the early 70s. He played in 69, 70, 71. Covers 2 decades. He returned to Tennessee as an assistant coach in 1980 and was an assistant coach at Tennessee from 1980 through 1989, the whole decade. He was the assistant coach and head coach of Tennessee in the 90s. He was the head coach of Tennessee in the 2000s. He returned to Tennessee as an athletic director in the 2010s and was there through 2021, so that carried into the 2030s. JP Peace, if he stays 4 years at Tennessee upon his commitment in 2027, will stay at Tennessee through 2030. So that means Tennessee would have been affiliated with Phillip Fulmer or Phillip Fulmer's legacy in the 1960s, the 1970s, the 1980s, the 1990s, the 2000s, the 2010s, the 2020s, and yes, the 2030s. Isn't that impressive? I think it is. When we come back, it'll be what the H. Lanoris Sellers turned down $8 million. They don't believe it. Stick with us. 2 minutes off the Hook Sports.
A beacon of hope in a world of high prices. Look to the skies, Knoxville. Super Savings is here. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 Volume 4 dealer. Employee pricing is here. You pay what we pay on all new Ford models. Come see the super dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare. Welcome back to Off the Hook Sports. I am Caleb Calhoun. We have an interesting topic for you guys to close out the show. And I don't know how I feel about it. So I'm going to ask you guys. But first, I'm setting it up on the poll question. And it's this. Lenor Sellers reportedly turning down $8 million in NIL money is a testament to his character, flat out lie, exaggerated, and then the last one will be exaggerated. I can't spell exaggerated, guys, but still. Okay, so Lanoris Sellers reportedly turning down $8 million in NIL money is a testament to his character, a flat-out lie, or exaggerated, but still a testament. According to reports, Lanoris Sellers turned down $8 million to transfer out of South Carolina. Now, this is on the heels of The Athletic doing a feature on Lanoris Sellers' rise to college football prominence. For those who don't remember, Lenor Sellers had a very strong finish to the year for South Carolina last year. He played at South Carolina in 2023, backing up Spencer Rattler. Came in 2024, struggled a bit early, and man, came on late and finished the year throwing for over 2,500 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. Ran for nearly 700 yards and another 7 touchdowns. Many people thought that while South Carolina had lost to Alabama, and I do believe Ole Miss, that of the 9-3 SEC teams, the 3 of the one that should have gotten in over SMU, South Carolina was the best of the 3 by that point at the end of the year, and they deserved it. Certainly possible. It's a reason for a lot of the hype behind them entering this year as he enters his redshirt sophomore season. So Lenor Sellers, it's worthy to do a feature on him. In the report from Bruce Feldman of The Athletic, there is a quote from Lanoris Sellers' father, Norris. And Norris says that Lanoris Sellers turned down a ton of money to transfer from South Carolina in the offseason. According to Feldman, quote, the biggest offer he heard was for $8 million for 2 years. Feldman quoted the Norris Sellers as saying, quote, he was offered all kinds of crazy numbers. I told him he could say, I'm going to stay or I'm going to go. But my 2 cents, it was to get into college on a scholarship, play ball, get our degree, and go on about our business. This NIL deal came later. We didn't come here to make money. We came here to get our education, play ball, and with schools calling, we're not going to jump ship because they're offering more than what we're getting. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now, I got a poll question up, and you guys give me your thoughts. Lenor Sellers reportedly turning down $8 million in NIL money is a testament to his character, a flat-out lie, exaggerated, but still a testament. I'm going with exaggerated, but still a testament. That comment from Lenor Sellers' father does lead me to have a lot of faith in Lenor Sellers, the player, and what he can be, because he's clearly, unlike a certain quarterback that played for Tennessee, a mature decision maker where he doesn't miss the forest for the trees. He is a South Carolina kid. He's from Florence, South Carolina. Lenor Sellers understands that you don't chase NIL cash and throw everything else away in college. Your education does matter. Developing right matters. Having people speak highly of your intangibles matters when you're trying to go to the NFL. And that NFL cash matters more than that NIL cash. And I think Lenor Sellers I'm going to speak very highly of him on this. I do think he turned down money and more offers to stay at South Carolina. I do. Lenor Sellers, for those who don't remember, was being talked about a lot. In the offseason as a potential transfer quarterback for a lot of other schools who needed one to pick up. And then he stayed at South Carolina. The stories just died at that point. So I do kind of believe it. But $8 million, what the H? It's a little bit high. What the H brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Designs.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
The poll question up, are Lenor Sellers reportedly turning down $8 million in NIL money? Is a flat-out lie, exaggerated but still a testament, or a testament to his character? I'm exaggerated but still a testament, and I would actually be closer to a testament to his character than a flat-out lie. And let me tell you guys why. We know that Lanoris Sellers was the standard for what Nico Iamaleava was fighting for in Tennessee, money-wise. We know that. And Nico Iamaleava was making $2.4 million. So we know Lanoris was making more than Nico was. We also know that schools were poaching and going after Lanoris Sellers, or trying to poach him. So with that in mind, I think it may be exaggerated, but I don't think it's exaggerated that much. I think Lanoris Sellers was offered a lot of money by a lot of other schools, and I do think he turned it down to stay at South Carolina. Now, I don't think it was like $4 million versus $1 million. I think it may have been like $4 million versus $3.8 million. Okay, but that's still a mature thing for Lanoris Sellers to do, to say, I'll take the lesser money here, and I will thrive on the stability. I don't believe in Dowell Loggins as the play caller as South Carolina's offensive coordinator. He's now the head coach at Appalachian State. But I did believe in Dowell Loggins' ability to develop quarterbacks. And I think he knew how to adjust to Lanoris Sellers. Did a decent job with Johnny Manziel, just a lot of other issues with Johnny Manziel with the Cleveland Browns. Now, South Carolina has brought in Mike Shula as an offensive coordinator. Look, I wasn't high on Dowell Loggins. I'm actually high on Mike Shula. That's a home run hire. Mike Shula knew how to tinker and tailor Cam Newton's game to make him an elite quarterback in 2013 with Carolina. I think Mike Shula is going to do an amazing job with Lanoris Sellers. And I think that was very smart of Lanoris Sellers to stay at to stay at South Carolina because of his stability, and to choose it over more money. That's a major testament to him. And the poll question, 60% of you guys disagree. Y'all think it's a flat out lie. That's fine. 40% say it's exaggerated, but still a testament. Again, I think it's exaggerated, but still a testament. Yeah. I'll say something like maybe Lanoris Sellers, maybe he says, put it this way, maybe he's making $3.5 million. He was all for $3.8 million, and someone says $4 million. I think the general gist of it is true, though. I think he was offered a lot of money to go elsewhere, and I think he willingly is choosing to stay at Tennessee, and I think his dad instilled the right values in him to stay at South Carolina, and I think his dad instilled the right values that you stay where you are, you stay loyal, you focus on getting your education and developing. Major props to Lanoris Sellers for that. I don't think it's totally untrue. I think the loyalty of Lanoris Sellers is there. And I also think Lanoris Sellers knows what he's building up, and he's not going to fall. I mean, he's not going to risk NFL draft stock just for some extra NIL cash. Also, being from Florence, South Carolina, he probably just loves South Carolina. He probably wants to stay in the state. We know that Steve Spurrier convinced a lot of kids when he was at South Carolina to stay in the state. I think a lot of kids do look for reasons. South Carolina is one of those states where you do look for reasons to stay there if you're a South Carolina kid. A lot of South Carolina kids do that. Very similar to a lot of Louisiana kids with LSU. It's just that South Carolina hasn't been able to be the dominant program that LSU has. But it took LSU a while. It wasn't until Nick Saban got there and Mark Emmert actually built up the facilities before they could do it. South Carolina is kind of that. The other problem is South Carolina has to compete with Clemson for that talent. If Clemson wasn't on the radar, or South Carolina wasn't on the radar, the other school would just have a dynasty brewing. in that state. There's a lot of good football talent in that state, and a lot of those kids don't like to leave the state. And so I do somewhat believe Lenor Sellers. And I think, again, the more I talk myself into it, I think the Nico Iamaleava story is what leads me to believe Lanoris Sellers, because we know on the open market, Nico Iamaleava and his camp were negotiating based on some reports for more money because of what was being offered to Lanoris Sellers. We do know that. And so I think that in Nico Iamaleava and Lanoris Sellers, you got a tale of two quarterbacks. And it's kind of funny to think about now because Lenor Sellers and Nico were in the same class. Lenor Sellers didn't come with the same hype. He was a 4-star, top 10 at his position, but not top 3, not in the conversation for one of the 2 best at his position. He was a 3-star on 247 Sports. And Nico was a 5-star across the board, was the game-changing quarterback. And towards the end of last year, Lenor Sellers looked like the better quarterback and decided to stay at the lesser program while Nico Iamaleava bolted for a lesser program over more money. It just speaks to the total difference in their characters and the intangibles. Major props to Lenor Sellers. Todd Hearn says someone is desperate if they are offering him that. Todd, you're right, but someone came close. And I will say this, Lenor Sellers, if I'm South Carolina, I offer him that because if you run the right offense, Lenor Sellers can just carry a team to a certain degree, and he might be able to do that. And with Mike Shula as an offensive coordinator who knows what he's doing, I would watch out for South Carolina. Tennessee is lucky they don't have to play them this year. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. We are live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville. New and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. I want to thank you guys all for tuning in today. Without Dave, he will be back tomorrow. He just had a previous commitment he had to deal with. He will be back tomorrow. It's just a one-time thing. Don't worry. I want to thank you guys all again for tuning in. Shortened show today. Again, hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell, turn your notifications on, tell a friend. We still are building here at Off the Hook Sports. We're almost at 8,000 subscribers, man. Come on, we need y'all. We want to get to that 8,000 mark. And when we do, we can do a little bit of celebration. So we appreciate you guys all for tuning in. You guys have a great rest of your day with Caleb Calhoun. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.